Hi, this is Marc Lopez and attorney Matt Griffiths and attorney Chad Rollins. And these two are some of the brightest business attorneys I know. And so I wanted to speak with them just about, the business climate involving the shutdown, stay-at-home orders. I know that both Matt and Chad do a lot of real estate law. And, one of the big things that Governor Holcomb did was say, hey, no evictions at least until May. And so, Matt, I wanted to start with you. What is the business climate right now? What is going through entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, real estate investors? What's going through their heads right now?
It's not good. The situation is bad and getting worse. What's happening? I'll talk about the commercial, and then Chad can talk about the residential. Chad handles a lot of our landlord tenant and eviction work on the residential side. On the commercial side, businesses are shut down. If you have a barber shop or a small restaurant or some other retail business, you have no income. And because you have no income, you can't pay your rent. And because you can't pay your rent, your landlord can't pay his mortgage, and he can't pay the people on his property management team. It's bad. It's bad, and it's getting worse. The federal government's programs to address some of these issues are good, way too slow. Way too slow. They should have got checks out 3 weeks earlier. If they had done that, we wouldn't have seen another 5.5 million people make first-time unemployment claims this past week.
Matt, are you talking about relief for individuals, or are you talking about relief for businesses?
So individuals are going to get some checks that are going straight to people that have essentially below $75,000, I think it's 75, of income. So they're just going to get a check from the federal government, depending on when they filed their tax returns and whether the federal government still has a connection to their bank account. So the federal government will just give those people checks, and those checks are coming out. But on the business side, there are essentially two programs that people are relying upon. One is the PPP, which is the Payroll Assistance Program, where a small business can make an application to get a loan from the Small Business Administration up to 2.5 times whatever their normal salary is. The salary is paid to their employees. So if you pay $10,000 a month on average for wages for your employees, then you could get 2.5 times that amount. You get a check from the government in the form of a loan that is 100% forgivable if you keep those people employed. 75% of the money you got on that loan, if it's used for employment purposes, pay employee wages, then you're gonna basically get that money for free. And then there's another loan program that's a traditional disaster relief program, where there's up to a $10,000 grant per business, and that you can just get that money in the form of a grant. You go directly online. There's no lender relationship. You go directly online to the SBA website, and you can apply for that money. Normally, that money is doled out in 3 days. It's taking as many as 10 days for people to get that money. It's a mess. And then to make the situation worse, the first round of, this is all under the CARES Act, the first round of funding is gone. The SBA isn't even taking applications anymore for the PPP. You can't even ask the government for money any longer. They stopped taking those applications yesterday.
The
situation's serious.
We're filming this today, Thursday, and
the 16th.
Every single news outlet has reported that they are done. There's no more money unless Congress
authorizes more. Yep.
And so anybody that's watching this, if they have an SBA number, are they basically in queue to get funded? Or if you don't have money in your account right now, you are just out of luck?
If you applied, well, I'm of the opinion that there's going to be so much political pressure on Congress that Congress will authorize another $250 billion. The first round was $349 billion. And for over a week, the Trump administration has been asking for another $250 billion. The Democrats want to add a whole bunch of other stuff onto the bill, and the Republicans want to keep it clean and just do another $250 billion of authorization. And they're arguing about that. And it's so stupid because while they're arguing, more and more people are going into the unemployment dole instead of working. That's politics.
No, it's absolutely insane, and people are suffering. I mean, like exactly you said, if I can't pay my rent, my landlord can't pay his mortgage, and then you're exactly correct. It's a giant domino effect. And
Yep.
what advice do you have for landlords, people that own buildings where literally, even if the people wanted to pay, they physically cannot come in and provide a service for customers to pay them? What advice do you have for the landlords that are watching this?
So on the commercial side, and Chad again can talk about the residential side. On the commercial side, landlords, if they have a mortgage, they need to go to the mortgage lender. They probably should have done this 2 weeks ago. Well, let me put it this way. My smart clients did two things. They were doing two things. My smart clients were going to their tenants and helping the tenants apply for PPP and other programs. They were actually assisting the tenants, the commercial tenants, on getting SBA relief. And they also were working out, they were working out partial payments so that the tenants continued to make some payments to the landlord. The smart tenants or the smart landlords also were applying for their own relief because they're eligible for relief. They're a business and they could also get relief, especially if they have staff. So anybody that has, like property managers that have a staff of people, they could apply for PPP and SBA disaster assistance as well. And then they also, the smart commercial landlords, were going to their lenders and working out deals to defer payments. And most lenders were giving anywhere from 3 to 6 months loan payment deferment. And so you would just take the next 90 days of loan payments and they would tack it onto the back of the loan as additional principal.
They basically got a 3-month grace period. They got to pay it back at the end. That is smart. That is absolutely fantastic. And
so you might ask yourself, well, why would the banks do that? Why would a commercial bank do that? And I'll tell you why. Because commercial banks are not in the business of foreclosing on restaurants and barbershops and ice cream places and all the retail stores. I mean, think about it. If you were a bank and you financed a strip center, a strip mall, do you want to take over all those businesses? Do you know how cheap it's going to be to buy used restaurant equipment in about 3 months, 6 months? If you want to start a restaurant, seriously, if you want to start a restaurant, wait 3 to 6 months and they'll give you the equipment to start a restaurant. You will have tables and chairs and stoves and refrigerators and freezers. You're going to be able to get all that equipment dirt cheap because so many restaurants are going to go bust. And the banks don't want that stuff. They know that when they foreclose and they take all that stuff back, they're not going to get any value out of it. The market's going to be in the toilet. So that's why banks are giving landlords assistance, so landlords can give assistance to the tenants so that everybody can just keep going. We just got to ride out the storm. We're all in the same boat.
No, absolutely. And what is a bank going to do with the ice cream parlor, ice cream equipment? They want to work. You're totally right about that. Chad, what perspective do you have from the residential market?
So along the same lines of what Matt's saying, I mean, landlords and investors of residential property have been caught holding the bag. The one advantage commercial landlords have is they can still file for eviction. So if it doesn't benefit them or doesn't make sense for them to hold out and work with their tenant to put this on the back end and they need to evict, they still can. Unfortunately, Governor Holcomb passed that executive order that put a stop on all new eviction and foreclosure proceedings as it relates to residential property. So they're out of luck there. The bigger disadvantage as well as that is a lot of the counties, small claims court and some of the superior courts are interpreting that executive order to not just be the initiation of a foreclosure eviction, but to a complete stop of anything. So even rulings have already come down awarding possession back to the landlord, where they could potentially move that tenant out and get a paying tenant in. The courts are interpreting and stopping that. So now they've got a possession order from potentially the end of March that already says that they've been granted possession back, but they can't enforce it. So the tenant's not going to pay. They know they're already on the way out, and the landlord's stuck holding the bag for potentially the next, at least until May, when the state of emergency is lifted potentially. But if it gets extended again, then they're going to still be in that same boat. So investors that I've worked with and the landlords, I've told them they have to make a business decision. They have to decide whether it makes sense to just do a trickle effect and get a little bit of money coming in from the tenant, even if it's not full payment, in lieu of an eviction, and then deal with it on the back end. And they also, just like Matt was saying, commercial, they need to reach out to their lenders and their mortgage companies and work with them and take advantage of any cash flow opportunities they have and pushing the mortgages and restructuring those, because even though they're not getting the money coming in, they're still obligated to pay the banks. So they just have to make do and ride the storm out. I'm hoping that the stimulus checks will start to trickle in for some of these people that have been hit hard, and can put that towards some of the rent. I understand that there's life decisions you have to put it where you need first, which is food on the table for the family. But then if there's leftovers, then maybe it can kind of go back up to scale, as you're saying, so the domino effect can be stopped a little bit. But other than that, they just have to ride out the storm and do the best they can to make do.
Chad, give us some advice. If someone's watching this and they are a renter and they're unemployed, they're laid off, they cannot pay rent, give them some sound advice, what to do, what next steps they should do right now.
There's not much advice you can give a renter that's in that situation, because even in Governor Holcomb's order, they're still obligated to that financial debt. So they still have to pay the rent. That doesn't stop that. And they can try to work with the landlord. They can come up with some plan that says that they will pay as much as they can now, and then tack on once they get back on their feet or in a couple months, that they'll just pay a premium to get caught back up. But it really falls onto the decision of the landlord. That the tenant really is not, doesn't have much ability to do anything other than plead.
And what about the opposite of that? What is some advice you have to landlords that have renters and for various reasons they're unable to pay rent? Mm-hmm. What's some advice that you can give them?
They need to be proactive, so they can't just a simple threat's not going to be effective in this sense, because once someone's pushed in a corner, they can't go any further. So at that point, a threat just is going to fall on deaf ears. So you have to give them a lifeline if you can. And that may be, look, I understand you're in a bad spot. Have an open conversation. What's your scenario? What do you have coming in, and what can you afford to pay? Even if it's only 10 cents on the dollar, it's better than nothing. And you can't do anything. You can't file the eviction anyway. So take whatever you can to give yourself some income coming in and deal with it on the backside.
It sounds like both of you gentlemen, the key to a lot of this is talking to everybody, trying to communicate effectively with, whether or not you're the landlord, renter, the business owner, the bank. It seems like communication is key. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Obviously, money is key. That's the king. But with these times, you can't do too much. And, so the communication is really paramount.
Well, think about it. Each player in the chain, right? So if you work for that barber shop, you can't cut hair right now, right?
You're lucky, Matt. You don't got that problem.
I was waiting for that. I don't know why I used barbershop as an example. I think, Mark, I had hair when I first met you. Maybe not. I don't know. But you can't work, right? So what's a person going to do? They're going to, like Chad said, they're going to try to put food on the table as best they can. So they're going to go file unemployment if they can't work. And here was what's really dumb is the way the federal government set this up, they actually gave more money to people to stay home than to work. The unemployment benefits were jacked up, and for some people, the unemployment benefits were better than their wages. So, okay, but people are going to naturally do what they've got to do. If you are the owner of the barbershop, what are you going to do? You can't pay your rent and you can't pay your employees. So you got to let your employees off, and you can't open your doors for business because there's an order that says you can't open up and conduct business. So you can't pay your rent. What are you going to do? I mean, people are going to naturally do what they can only do, right? You can't expect them to pay the rent if they got no income coming, entering the door. So it behooves the landlord to reach out to the tenant and say, hey, what can we do to, work through this together? It's got to be a win-win. If everybody, it's sort of like the prisoner's dilemma, right? If both guys, two guys that robbed a liquor store, they're in questioning room A and questioning room B, right? And the police are interviewing both of them. If they stick to their story, they're golden. They both have alibis for each other and they're great. But if one cracks, the whole thing falls apart and they're probably both going to jail. Well, guess what? It's the same for us. We're all in this together, okay? So we desperately need to hold things together so that we don't go into a depression. We're probably going to hit a recession. And it's possible we actually get out of this without a recession. That's defined as 2 quarters in a row of economic, where the economy goes downward, 2 quarters in a row. It's possible that we have one horrible quarter. The first quarter actually wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Surprisingly. March was bad. January and February, not so bad. So second quarter is going to be the big one. That's going to be very painful, the second quarter. And then hopefully we bounce out of it quickly in the third quarter. I'm of the opinion that we're going to come out hard and fast. But I think there's going to be a lot of collateral damage. There is talk, I heard that HUD is already talking about some kind of mortgage foreclosure assistance. So for those who are old enough to not have hair and who went through the mortgage foreclosure crisis, that was crazy. We had so many mortgage foreclosures. I don't think we're going to have that volume of foreclosures this time. I do think there's going to be a big tick up in bankruptcies, both business and individuals. And I think there's going to be an uptick in foreclosures. There'll be an uptick in evictions for sure, because this assistance from the federal government was inadequate to replace what the economy normally does, and it was too slow.
Yeah.
It was too slow. It was too slow by about 3 weeks. And, the Republicans and Democrats arm wrestled for an extra week about stuff. Even after they had the bill done, they spent another week arguing with each other. So that was one of the 3 weeks. If they had gotten the relief out 3 weeks earlier, we'd be in a completely different scenario. But 3 weeks made a big difference. A lot of people got fired or laid off in the past 30 days, a huge number. And now we're in the spot we're in. 20 million people lost their job in the past month. That's
Indiana's unemployment claims are just insane right now too. I mean,
every state is suffering this.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, I really appreciate both you guys taking your time to chat with me. And Matt, what is the absolute best way for someone to get a hold of yourself or Chad?
I would say go to our website, indybizlaw.com, INDYBIZLAW.com. That's probably the easiest way. Go there, and there are links, our phone numbers, our physical address is on there, but our doors are closed right now. So, what's interesting is we have a virtual law office. It's indianavirtuallaw.com. And so we've kind of been anticipating that more and more of our clients are going to be getting legal services online. We've been talking about and thinking about and planning for that for years, actually. But we didn't realize the extent to which we would be forced into that through a pandemic. Yeah. But that's the easiest way to get a hold of us is go to indybizlaw.com and either give us a call or send us an email.
Perfect. Thanks so much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.